ladies and gentlemen. I'd like, first of all, to sincerely apologize on behalf of my CEO, Ambassador Rose Quatre, who could not make it to this important conference due to other important engagements she had to undertake. She's on official mission that came at the very last minute when she had confirmed participation at this very important conference. Perhaps, before addressing the topic, empowering Africa's economies, the transformative impact of Africa Credit Rating Agency, not the AfCRA, but the Africa Credit Rating Agency on local and regional markets, to briefly explain how the idea of establishing AfCRA originated. I thought it prudent to narrate the historical context because of an article I read on 13th of November last year by the Overseas Development Institute, which is a global think tank. The article was titled, "Give Credit Where It Is Due, Africa's Fight with Big Three Credit Rating Agencies is Overblown." Dear participants, the idea of the APRM in supporting African Union member states in the field of international credit rating agencies was first proposed at the 4th General Assembly of the Forum of Former Heads of State and Government that was held in Addis Ababa in April 2016. In his address, the former president of the FDB, His Excellency Dr. Babaka Adiaye, who is also a member of the forum, said, and I quote, "The APRM is a critical tool, a mechanism which should explore the possibility of playing the role of the Continental Rating Agency. We cannot have external people coming to rate us when we have such capable and competent mechanisms such as the APRM. It is important to note that the issue raised by the former president of the FDB emanated from concerns over the impact of poor ratings in African countries by the three leading international credit rating agencies, namely S&P, Moody's, and Fitch, which are domiciled in the US and the UK. These three rating agencies provide sovereign credit ratings in Africa, which aim to provide investors with specific insights into the credit worthiness or the ability to pay a borrowed amount together with interest, as well as the level of default risk associated with investing in a particular entity or economy. Therefore, the issue of international credit rating agencies on the continent is primarily centered around sovereign credit rating, which are essential in determining the interest rates that a borrower entity or a government must pay in servicing its debt, thus affecting the cost of capital. It is worth noting that sovereign credit ratings by international credit rating agencies are very useful in predicting a country's economic distress and inform financial markets to correctly apportion sovereign credit risk. The European Union Commission in 2011 presented macroeconomic models showing evidence that sovereign credit upgrades affect positively a country's gross domestic product, GDP. Credit ratings are thus a measure of a country's economic strength and play an important role in supporting greater public sector financial transparency as sovereigns seek to improve their credit ratings to reduce borrowing costs and ultimately external debt. Distinguished participants, however, international credit ratings agencies also play a destructive role. The failures of the three dominant international rating agencies have been unequivocally exposed during the financial markets collapse of New York City in the mid-1970s that caused the US real GDP growth to fall from 7.2% to negative 2.1%. The Asian financial crisis of 1997-1998 that cost Asian countries a combined 31.7% loss in nominal GDP. The Enron scandal of 2001 that resulted in shareholders, employees, and creditors losing more than $100 billion US dollars, and the global financial crisis of 2008 that caused over 10% loss of GDP in all major economies around the world at that moment in human history. In his findings on the causes of the 2008 financial crisis in the US, the Financial Crisis Inquiry Commission report of 2011 reported that the financial crisis would not have happened without the rating agencies. Mortgage-related securities that were at the center of the crisis would not have been marked and sold without rating, seal, and approval. Finally, honed credit rating agencies' computer models accorded AAA ratings to complex mortgage-backed securities that almost no one understood. An investor and investment banks were paying handsome fees to the rating agencies to obtain the desired ratings. The report noted that prior to the crisis, the rating agencies placed market share and profit considerations above quality and integrity of their ratings by deliberately disseminating inaccurate information about the probability of default issuers. Barter and Johnston, in that paper titled Rating Policies, Partisan Discrimination in Credit Ratings in Developed Economies, a paper published in 2017, have revealed that the changes in credit ratings of African countries do not reflect the average improvement in political, economic, and social indicators. Sovereign rating statistics show that the international credit ratings have downgraded more countries than they have upgraded in Africa, despite positive economic growth on the continent. The UNDP report, launched in April 2023 during the spring meetings in Washington, estimated the impact biased credit ratings on African countries as costing at about 74.5 billion. The report also highlighted that Africa's debt profile has surged by 183% since the beginning of the new millennium, a rating nearly 4 times higher than its GDP growth rate. The African Development Bank has underscored that interest payments now constitute the highest and fastest growing portion of expenditure for many African countries, coinciding with downgrading of African economies. It has also been observed that international credit ratings continue to influence internal affairs of national governments in emerging markets, such as those in the BRICS countries, as well as those on the continent. For Africa, the major challenges relating to international credit ratings are dictating government policy, regime change maniacs, ignored economic potential in emerging economies, and most importantly, more downgrades than upgrades from international credit ratings, and selective aggression. Most importantly, difference in rating grades and dominance and over-reliance on the 3 lead international credit ratings, and of course, market failures and lack of objectivity and no conclusive proof of soundness and concealment of material facts. Distinguished participants, it is for these reasons that the African Union Assembly of Heads of State and Government at its 28th ordinary session through decision 631 directed the APRM to provide support to member states in the field of credit ratings. The African Union Ministers of Finance and Development Planning at the 6th Specialized Technical Committee on Finance, Monetary Affairs, Economic Planning and Integration, held in July 2023 in Nairobi, endorsed the establishment of a private sector-driven Africa Credit Rating Agency based on self-funding and sustainability. This decision was endorsed by the Executive Council in July last year. And the Executive Council also requested the APRM, the UNECA, the AU Commission to collaborate with international credit rating agencies and technical institutions on data dissemination, transparency, standards to strengthen credit ratings in Africa. It is therefore a fallacy to say that the establishment of the Africa Credit Rating Agency is a fight against the major 3 international credit rating agencies. So to answer the question that is before us today, I would like to state that it is envisaged that the Africa Credit Rating Agency will be launched this year in July 2025. A transactional advisor has been appointed to operationalize the agency. The key principles of financing of the agency are that it will be fully funded by its shareholders through equity capital, it will be self-sustainable through revenue generated from its services, and there will not be any contributions or subventions from AU member states or partners. The ownership model of the Africa Credit Rating Agency will be in 3 classes. Class A will be the majority Pan-African multilateral financial institutions so as to avoid hostile takeover. Class B will be domestic and regional rating agencies with no ownership by the big 3 dominant international credit rating agencies. And Class C will be international investors, both African and non-African. So the African Credit Rating Agency will be independent from the African Union. It will also have its own independent governance structure. Distinguished participants, for too long, Africa's economic growth and investment prospects have been evaluated through the lenses of external credit rating agencies. While these institutions have played an essential role in assessing sovereign and corporate creditworthiness, concerns remain about their methodologies, the level of engagement with African governments, and their impact on borrowing costs. It is time for Africa to build more inclusive and contextually relevant rating system, one that fully appreciates the complexities and opportunities within our economies. The Africa Credit Rating Agency emerges as a transformative force, an institution designed to complement global agencies while providing independent, transparent, and Africa-centric credit assessments. The ultimate goal of the Africa Credit Rating Agency is to ensure that Africa's risk perceptions are fair, well-grounded, reflective of the continent's actual economic strength and resilience. The transformative impact of Africa Credit Rating Agency on local and regional markets is anchored around credible, data-driven assessments tailored to Africa's unique economic and development realities. The Africa Credit Rating Agency is going to provide localized insights and reduced information asymmetry. It will enable governments, businesses, investors to make informed decisions that drive growth, attract investment, and ultimately uplift communities. Specifically, the agency is going to enhance market confidence in African economies, provide investors with a balanced and nuanced perspective, enable governments to engage more effectively with financial markets, and support local businesses in accessing capital on fair terms. The establishment of the agency is a game changer for local and regional markets by addressing rating inconsistencies and broadening access to credit assessments. The agency will stimulate greater investment, enhance financial sector development, and support regional integration through the African Continental Free Trade Area, and most importantly, ensure the speedy realization of the second 10-year implementation plan of Agenda 2063. Furthermore, the agency's approach will encourage a more proactive engagement between African governments and rating agencies, fostering greater transparency and economic resilience. This will not only improve affordability of capital for African nations, but will also accelerate sustainable development across all sectors. Distinguished participants, as we embrace this new era, collaboration remains key. The Africa Credit Rating Agency cannot succeed in isolation. It requires the support of governments, financial institutions, the private sector, players to establish a credible and globally respected rating framework. We must work together to ensure that Africa's economic story is told with accuracy, fairness, and deep appreciation for our collective aspirations. Let us seize this opportunity to empower economies, drive sustainable development, and secure Africa's rightful place in the global financial ecosystem. It is our solemn conviction that the Africa Credit Rating Agency represents more than a credit rating agency. It is a symbol of Africa's economic sovereignty, a vehicle for financial empowerment, and a catalyst for long-term growth. Together, let us build a future where Africa's economies are assessed on their true potential, unlocking new possibilities for generations to come. Thank you for your kind attention.